Hey everybody, it's me, Sam Tom from the future. This intro is going to be on multiple videos, so if you think you've accidentally clicked the same one twice, you probably haven't. I guess maybe you have, but you might not. So if you are watching this, you're about to watch me talk about Resident Evil. But here's the problem. When I started recording, I thought I was going to talk about all 6 movies in one video. Turned out that would have been a 2-hour long video. So at some point I decided I would break it up into 2 videos. Still would have been pretty long. So I got big brain and decided to do one video every day for a week leading up to my video about the new Resident Evil. So Resident Evil number 1, that video will go up on Sunday, and then there will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then on Saturday my video for the new Resident Evil will pop up. So, deep breaths, deep breaths. At some point in the videos that you're going to see, I will mention everything being in one video. At some point I'll talk about it being 2 videos. At some points I'm going to be like, we'll be right back in a second with my thoughts on the next one. And then the video is going to be over because past me didn't know what he was talking about. So this is future me explaining to you the situation. So this intro is going to be in all 6 videos. Feel free to skip it if you click around. I'm not going to put cards in every video because cards are frustrating, but I will put the links to all the Resident Evils as they get published. I'm sorry, all my videos about the Resident Evil movies as they get published in the description, and I will have a playlist link at the end of each video so that as you get to the end of one, you can easily find the next one. Oh my goodness, I'm talking way too fast. By the way, this is the higher part of the shelf that I sit in front of. These are where all my DC things are. So, hope you enjoy listening to me rant about zombies for a long time. Thank you. Alright, we finally made it to part 6, the final chapter. I think at some point I'm going to do a whole video about how much it annoys me when movies call themselves things like the final chapter, because it happens a lot and it's almost always wrong. But for now, let's talk about the final chapter in this Resident Evil series. Liked it better than 4 and 5. Still not as much as 1, 2, and 3. But let's get into my notes. My first note is that Ever Anderson. So I only know who Ever Anderson is because at the time I'm recording this, Black Widow came out less than a week ago. And so I know her from that. But as soon as the movie starts and you see the young Alicia that Alice is based on, I'm like, that's her kid, which, you know, makes sense. It reminded me of Underworld. Big fan of the Underworld movies. And Kate Beckinsale's daughter gets to act in one of the later films, so you know, her mom's the star, her dad's the writer-director. Of course she's going to get a role in there. So, way to go, Ever. Nice work. Alright. So this film is set roughly 10 years after the first one. During the introduction, we get told that they go to DC to make their last stand. That's where the last one ends. They're going to DC, and I wrote down, will we see this last stand? No, we don't. So, again, we're jumping ahead and we're skipping over these things that I want to see. Why are we skipping these things? Oh, frustrating. Next note. There are dragons now. Sure. So, again, I know a lot of these creatures come from the games, but in the context of the movie, there's no explanation for them, and it's just... So, yeah, we have dragons now. Well, we have one dragon. We never see another one. I know it's not really a dragon, but that's basically what it is. Okay, at one point, Red Queen tells her tells Alice that, I forget if it's Wesker. I think his name is Wesker. Something with a W. Anyway, W, pretended to give you your powers back. I don't know how that works. Did he just lie to her, and then she went out and tried to fight and found out that she didn't have her powers? Could she not tell? When she got injected, did the injection make her feel like shit? Like, I'm very confused about how that works. Again, I would have really liked to see that in this big last stand that we were told about, but didn't get to see. That's confusing. Then, when she meets up with these people in Raccoon City, there's a kid there, and I'm just like, how are there still children? It's 10 years after the apocalypse. Children are the worst thing in the apocalypse because they cry all the time. And A Quiet Place, even, I think people like those movies, but those kids should be dead. And I'm just like, how are there still kids in these movies? And I know there's been 2 other ones with kids before, but one of them was a clone, and one of them was right after the apocalypse started. This one is 10 years into the apocalypse. It's not a clone. How is that kid alive? He would have definitely died earlier. Okay, I wrote Batman's back, and we got back Batwoman. Ruby Rose is in this. So back to two Bat persons in these movies. Once again, I wrote good thing explosions only go one way. So there's a scene where they're pouring gasoline down a big channel, or a big opening. There's a bunch of zombies down below. And as the gasoline is still pouring out from the top, they light it on fire. And then the fire only goes down and then explodes down there. But it's still falling out of the drums of gasoline right next to them. But good thing explosions only go one way. Oh, man. I wrote that the CGI has caught up to, modern scrutiny. But then I wrote, for now, because there's a lot of stuff that I know has to be CGI and it looks really good right now. But in 5 years, when we get used to better CGI, if I watch this again, is it still going to hold up? I don't know. We keep using CGI for all these creatures that aren't important to the plot. Oh, man. My next note, the fan is way more powerful in reverse. So they have this fan that's powered off. They go through it. It powers on, but they're all through it, or they all get through it before it gets up to speed. And it doesn't affect them at all. Their hair's not moving. They're not being blown around, whatever. But then all he says is reverse the polarity, which is not, I don't think, how it works. Direction is not the same thing as polarity, but whatever. Maybe it is. I'm not a scientist. But basically, you spin it the other direction so that it's blowing the other direction. And he doesn't say to increase the speed. We don't see him increase the speed. We don't see anything with the speed change. All he says is to reverse direction. And now suddenly, it's lifting them up off of the ground and pulling them towards the fan. Which, fine. Maybe it has more speeds. But if they say it's to get air into the hive, that there would not, why would it have the capability to go that fast? That doesn't make sense for the piece of machinery that it is. Also, why are the blades so razor sharp that they can just shred someone that goes into them? Fan blades are typically not sharp. They might still cut into someone going through them, but they're not going to just shred them instantaneously. Dumb scene. And then as the power dies again in that section, he's still watching them on the cameras. So I'm like, are these cameras not running on power? Are they running on a separate power grid? Why is it that everything else is powered down, but the cameras are still working? These things don't make sense. Explosion-proof boots. So at one point, Claire is trapped in a cage of glass or plexiglass or something like that. And her solution is to create a small controlled explosion and block it with her boot that she's wearing. And it blows out everything in the cage, which presumably she couldn't break by hitting it. I assume she would have tried that first before MacGyvering a bomb. But it's enough to blow all that stuff out, but it doesn't affect her or her boot or her foot at all. Just lots of dumb things in this movie. I wrote that I love the Sherlock simulations where they're figuring out how the fight scene is going to go. I'm glad it wasn't overdone. I liked the little bit that they did. I wrote again, because they talk about it again later. I wrote again, what happened in Washington? Why didn't we see that? Okay, so this movie has two main problems. One of them is I don't know if it's the direction or the editing, but there are so many cuts during the action scenes in this movie. Aside from that, this ticking clock that doesn't need to be there and also makes no sense. So the Red Queen tells Alice that in, I think it's 48 hours, all of the remaining survivors are going to be overtaken by Umbrella. Right? Every settlement that she knows of, and she scanned the whole earth, so she knows them all, they're all going to be overtaken in 48 hours. So she tells Alice that she has 48 hours to release this agent, which implies that this airborne agent is going to affect the entire Earth simultaneously, which A, doesn't make any sense, and B, they say at the end of the movie that that's not how it would work. So why then does she give her that information where she says you have 48 hours to get this done. Now, it so happens that through the course of the movie, because Alice kills Dr. Isaac, well, Dr. Isaacs kills Dr. Isaacs. Is it Isaac or Isaacs? Whatever. Bruce Wayne. Because he dies, the Red Queen can then call off all the troops that are marching on all the other settlements, and then the airborne agent has time to naturally spread throughout the earth. But that wasn't the plan. The plan was, in 48 hours, everyone is going to die, so you have to release this within 48 hours. But that would not have saved anyone, because that's not how airborne agents work. They're not instantaneous all the way over. And then they go out of the way to point out that that's not how they work, even though that goes against the plan that they made. But in the scene where she releases it, it spreads throughout all the zombies attacking her almost instantaneously, including zombies that are upwind of her. And we see dust and fog and clouds of debris blowing in one direction, and zombies that are towards that direction are still killed almost instantly by this airborne agent that would have no way of getting there because the wind is blowing the opposite direction. It's so stupid. What else? So yeah, what I wrote down was, luckily airborne agents cover the entire Earth instantly, including against the wind, except not, because, like I said, they point out that what they said was wrong, but they don't point out why they had a plan that didn't make any sense. Anyway, moving on. So once again, towards the end of this movie, the Red Queen says, you're all going to die down here. This is the third time she said this in these movies. She's been wrong every time. Every time that she said that, at least one person escapes. 0 for 3, Red Queen. Okay. Those are the last of my mainline notes. But like I mentioned, the other big problem with this movie are the amount of cuts. So early in the movie, there's a scene where Alice steps into a trap, gets hoisted up upside down, and has to fight off a bunch of agents while she's hanging upside down, and then release herself and finish off the agents. That scene, that sequence lasts 30 seconds. And in those 30 seconds, there are 57 cuts. I went back and I went through frame by frame and I counted the cuts. 57 cuts in 30 seconds. Math tells me that that's 1.9 seconds of screen time. Nope, that's not right. 1.9 cuts per second. So every second that you're watching this scene, it cuts 1.9 times, averaged out over 30 seconds. That is exhausting to try to keep up with cut. And the whole movie is like that. The entire movie, anytime anything of interest is happening on screen, the cuts are ridiculous. I went to another scene late towards the end of the movie when she's fighting Bruce Wayne in the laser hallway. I gotta do math in my head. 15 seconds? From 127.38 to 127.55. 17 seconds, 50 cuts. Which is 2.9 cuts per second. And on a longer period of time, I kept counting further into that sequence. And from an hour and 27 minutes and 38 seconds to an hour and 28 minutes and 51 seconds, which is 1 minute and 13 seconds. There's 126 cuts. 126 cuts in a minute and 13 seconds, which is 1.65 cuts per second. So the longer bits, there will be 1 or 2 cuts that last a second or two, so they throw the average off. But there are cuts that last only a couple of frames. Why would you do that? It's exhausting to watch. It's hard to follow what's going on. There's one bit where, I'm just going to keep calling him Bruce Wayne. He picks Alice up off the ground, throws her up. She hits a light in the ceiling. It breaks the glass. She falls back down and lands on the ground. We start looking at him standing up over her. It cuts to show him picking her up. It cuts to a wide shot of him throwing her. It cuts as she hits. There's a cut that shows us glass falling. It cuts to show her falling. And then it cuts to show us her landing. And then it cuts back to show him watching over her. So him standing, him picking her up, him throwing her crashing, glass falling, her landing, him looking at her. 8 cuts in that much time. It is absolutely ridiculous. This movie was exhausting to watch. I liked how the story went. This is probably going to sound conflicting based on what I said with number 5. Number 5 rehashed the same ideas, but it didn't continue the story, right? It took her to a facility that she had to escape from, but it did nothing for the story. In this one, they literally go back to the first facility from the first movie, and she has to move in and out of it, but that's not the point. The point is to get a cure to save the world. It moves the story forward, and it just kind of brings it back down. We've got a more simplified focus, just like in the first movie. We're mostly following Alice and then these couple other groups and then the bad guys. So I like how it worked story-wise, which is why I like it better than 4 and 5. But it's exhausting to watch because whoever's in control of where the cuts go refuse to let the camera linger for a couple seconds during an action scene. So that's where I'm at on the Resident Evil films so far. I like 3 the best, then 1, then 2, then 6, then 4, then 5. I think I got that right. So those are my thoughts on Resident Evil. I got no idea what to expect for the new one. I haven't seen any trailers. I haven't seen anything for it. I've literally just seen on the, list of upcoming movies that it's coming out. So I don't know what to expect. I would say I don't really have any expectations because some of these I've really, really enjoyed. Some of these I haven't enjoyed. And it's a reboot, so it could totally start fresh and it doesn't have to worry about the baggage from the old ones. So I am hopeful, but I don't have high expectations, which is good because that means that hopefully I will be surprised. But those are my thoughts on Resident Evil 6, the final chapter. Let me know what your thoughts are. That's all I have for now. Thank you for watching, and have a good day. Hey, it's me, Sam Tom from the future again, recording an outro that's going to be on all these videos about Resident Evil. So if you think you've already seen this, you probably have. Apologies if that video ended strangely or abruptly, because again, I thought there would be more in the video, and there's not. This is it. So, those were my thoughts on whichever Resident Evil movie I was talking about in that video. Feel free to tell me your thoughts, but that's all I have. Thank you for watching, and have a good day. And if you haven't watched the rest of my Resident Evil, I can't speak! Check out my other videos. Thank you, bye!